Welcome to 100 Stories for My Daughter. Here you'll find short and inspiring stories for children and adults about love, dreams, and believing in yourself. Each story is a small gift for the soul. Listen, share, and be inspired. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a girl named Cinderella. She was kind and hard-working, always putting others first. But her days were far from easy. Every morning, Cinderella swept the floors, cooked meals, and cared for the home while her stepsisters lounged in fine clothes, gossiping and laughing. Her stepmother, sharp-tongued and cold, made sure Cinderella knew her place. "Look at you," her stepmother sneered one day as Cinderella wiped soot from her hands. "A girl covered in ashes. Who could ever think you're worth more than this?" Her stepsisters giggled. "Ashes and rags suit you, Cinderella. Why dream of anything else?" Cinderella didn't answer. She kept her head down, her hands busy. But deep inside, her heart ached. Their words settled like heavy stones, weighing down her dreams. That night, as the house grew quiet, Cinderella crept to her small corner of the attic. She sat by the window, gazing at the stars. "Is this all I'm meant to be?" she whispered. The cool night air stirred the curtains. A faint whisper seemed to carry on the breeze. "What do you truly want?" Cinderella frowned, glancing around. She was alone. The whisper faded, but the question lingered in her mind. What do I want? She couldn't find an answer. Shaking her head, she turned away from the window and settled into bed. But the whisper refused to leave, a small, stubborn spark in her heart. The next morning, Cinderella was sent to gather firewood in the forest. Her stepsisters demanded a fresh fire for their tea party, and her stepmother made it clear Cinderella wasn't invited. The forest was quiet, its tall trees swaying gently in the breeze. Cinderella walked with her basket, savoring the rare peace. But her thoughts drifted back to the attic, to the whisper that had stirred something inside her. "You carry a heavy load, my dear," came a voice. Startled, Cinderella turned to see an old woman sitting on a tree stump. Her silver hair gleamed in the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with a knowing warmth. "I'm just gathering firewood," Cinderella said cautiously. The woman smiled. "Perhaps. But the weight you carry isn't just in that basket, is it?" Cinderella blinked. "I don't understand." The woman gestured for her to sit. "Tell me, child, what do you dream of?" "I don't know," Cinderella admitted after a long pause. "I've spent so long doing what others tell me to do. I don't think I've ever asked myself that question." The woman nodded thoughtfully. "Then it's time you start. Happiness isn't something you earn by working hard for others. It's something you create by listening to your heart." "But what if my heart doesn't know what it wants?" Cinderella asked quietly. "It does," the woman said with a soft smile. "You just have to give it space to speak." Cinderella hesitated, then whispered, "I want to rest, just for a moment." "Then rest," the woman said. And for the first time in years, Cinderella sat quietly, letting the sunlight warm her face. A week later, a royal messenger arrived at the house, delivering an invitation to a grand ball. The prince was seeking a partner, and every eligible young woman was invited. Cinderella's stepsisters squealed with excitement, rushing to demand new dresses and shoes. Cinderella watched silently, her heart stirring with curiosity. "Do you think I could go?" she asked hesitantly. Her stepmother's laughter rang out sharply. "You? At the ball? Don't be ridiculous. Who would look at a girl like you?" Cinderella lowered her eyes, her cheeks burning. She turned away, but the whisper from the forest returned. "What do you truly want?" That evening, as her family prepared for the ball, Cinderella slipped outside to the garden. The old woman was waiting for her beneath the moonlight, her presence as calm as the stars above. "You've come," the woman said with a smile. Cinderella hesitated. "They said I don't belong at the ball." "And what do you believe?" the woman asked. Cinderella hesitated again. I don't know." "Let's change that," the woman said. She waved her hand, and the garden transformed. A pumpkin turned into a shining carriage, and Cinderella's rags shimmered into a beautiful gown. Glass slippers sparkled on her feet. "The magic will fade at midnight," the woman said. "But remember, the gown doesn't make you worthy. You already are. Tonight, prove it to yourself." The palace glittered like a dream. Cinderella stepped inside hesitantly, her heart pounding. Heads turned as she entered, but it wasn't just the gown that drew their gaze, it was the quiet confidence in her steps. The prince approached her, his smile warm and genuine. "You seem different from everyone else here. May I have this dance?" Cinderella nodded, her nerves melting as they danced. The music swirled around them, but their conversation was what truly connected them. "What do you dream of?" the prince asked. "To choose my own path," Cinderella replied, surprising even herself with the strength in her voice. The prince smiled. "That's a dream worth chasing." But as the clock struck midnight, Cinderella remembered the old woman's warning. She pulled away, her heart racing. "Wait!" the prince called. But Cinderella was already running, leaving behind a single glass slipper. Back in her attic, Cinderella clutched the remaining slipper, her thoughts swirling. The ball had been magical, but now doubts crept in. What if the prince only liked the girl in the gown? What if I'm not enough without it? The old woman appeared once more, her gaze gentle. "Why do you doubt yourself?" "I'm afraid," Cinderella whispered. "What if he doesn't see the real me?" "And does the gown change who you are?" the woman asked. Cinderella shook her head. "Then show him the truth," the woman said. "You don't need magic to prove your worth." Cinderella stared at the slipper in her hand, her fear melting into determination. When the prince arrived with the glass slipper, the house was in chaos. Cinderella's stepsisters eagerly tried to force their feet into the shoe, but it didn't fit. "What about her?" the prince asked, his gaze falling on Cinderella. Her stepmother scoffed. "She's just a servant. Surely she doesn't belong in a palace." Cinderella stepped forward, her voice steady. "Let me try." The room fell silent as she slipped her foot into the shoe, which fit perfectly. "I knew it was you," the prince said softly. "But the girl you met at the ball, she isn't the whole story," Cinderella said. "I'm more than that." "And that's why I came back," the prince replied with a smile. Cinderella left her stepmother's house, not as someone rescued, but as someone who had chosen her own path. At the palace, she didn't settle into a life of luxury. Instead, she worked alongside the prince to create a space where everyone, regardless of their status, could be heard and valued. The old woman visited her one last time. "You found your strength," she said. Cinderella smiled. "Thanks to you, but most of all, thanks to finally believing in myself." Her journey had taught her that true happiness wasn't about approval or appearances. It was about the courage to trust herself and create her own future.